We can go ahead and get started. We got quite a few things to cover today. I believe there are folks still signing in. We have about 61 participants thus far. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This is a joint convening of the Bridgeport Roundtable Council, the Greater New Haven Reentry Roundtable, and IMRP, which convenes a lot of the meetings between the Reentry Roundtable Collaborative and does a lot of great work throughout the state on a host of issues. We wanted to start off the meeting by playing a PSA as it relates to the voting rights of individuals that are formerly incarcerated. And we will get that going in just a second. Andrew, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure. So just in terms of the Reentry Collaborative, which Earl mentioned, convenes the chairs of the 10 roundtables throughout the state. As I think folks on the call may be aware, in April we began the Reentry Reform Series, and then we moved to May and had Make It Happen May. And one of the events we did on May 28th, Make It Happen May, focused on civic actions. And we talked about prison gerrymandering, we talked about the census and the importance of that. And we also focused on voting rights for formerly incarcerated and incarcerated individuals. And I would welcome anyone to take a look at that information. It's on the ctreentry.org site, and there's the videos from those series and a lot of the handouts as well. And there's some valuable handouts there. And I see Alex Tsarkov sent some information on a handout as well to folks in the chat. So what I'd like to say in terms of this issue is, it's one of those things where it's especially takes a new focus, a renewed focus relative to the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd. And the collaborative put out a statement on racial justice on June 19th, 2020. And that's on the website as well, the ctreentry.org site as well. But, just pulling out one of the quotes from a paragraph there, we mentioned that for centuries, Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the United States have faced an insidious litany of barriers to true justice because of the systemic racism that for too long has resisted remedy, either through outright denial or endless delay. And for me, this is one of those areas where there's been endless delay and sometimes outright denial. The state has changed voting rights relative to convictions a number of times over the years, but certainly it's been in place. The current system has been in place for quite some time. And that system allows folks to not only register, but vote if they are in pretrial detention or have a misdemeanor conviction. And the fact of the matter is those folks have not been afforded their right to do so for a long time. And fingers could be pointed at, who has the responsibility there. But it's one of those insidious barriers that just, has been going on and no one's taking ownership of it. And that's one of those outright denial or endless delay. And we can't deny the fact that still 70% of our prison population are people of color in the state. And that's far greater proportionally to the people who are residents of the state. And so when this happens, it's hard not to see it in the light of what Michelle Alexander called the new Jim Crow. And so we're really hopeful, I think today, it's part of a series of conversations and efforts to ensure that those individuals that have the right to vote in Connecticut prisons are able to vote. And we wanted to be able to make sure that folks are educated on what those rights are, because they can be fairly convoluted in our state, and also how this will actually get done. And it's exciting to know that folks at the DOC and the Secretary of State have been involved, but we just want to make sure and are working towards a system of ensuring that happens, but we just want to make sure that it does happen. And I know a number of people on the call today have resources and experience and a willingness to make it happen. So unfortunately, a lot of those people don't have the ultimate ability to make it happen because they don't have control of those systems. So we're again very thankful for this opportunity. Thank you to Bridgeport and New Haven for inviting us, and I look forward to the conversation.
Hi, I'm Denise Merrill, Connecticut's Secretary of the State. Promoting and protecting the voting rights of all of our Connecticut citizens are among my most important responsibilities. I'd like to address those of you who have had involvement in either our state or the federal criminal justice systems. Even if you were formerly incarcerated, in Connecticut you still have the right to vote. You can register to vote if you have completed confinement and parole, even if you've previously been convicted of a felony. You are eligible to register and vote if you're confined for a misdemeanor offense only, using your hometown address and an absentee ballot. And you're eligible to vote using an absentee ballot if you're being held in pretrial detention and have not been convicted of a felony. Know your rights. And remember, no vote is ever wasted. Please exercise your right to vote by registering in your community. You can even do it online. We need you to create a stronger Connecticut for all. Thank you.
I want to take a moment to just introduce a couple of other people that have joined the call. We have Mayor Joseph Ganim and we have Rep. Christopher Rosario from the Bridgeport Legislative Delegation. And I'm going to let Mayor Ganim have a few words here in regards to his support in this effort for voting rights for former felons.
And everyone, thanks for being on the call and pulling this together. I just think it's something I want to, as I told Earl, as he was briefing me, I want to get as involved as I can for a variety of reasons. I think it's critically important. Having been through the process of being inside and not even, just to be reminded that when you come out, you can vote and what you have to go through and the elements of that. But really reaching out, as I think Andrew mentioned it earlier, this is just something it's denying rights by, at the very least, by delay. And so this collaborative, which is impressive, coming together to begin to address it. I just want to make sure I say it, and I'll say it again, or as I said to you, in every way that I can be helpful. I really like to up my involvement substantially. So I'll leave that out there and then work once this is over in any way that you ask me where I can be helpful. But I can remember even in 2015 where I had come out and went through the process as Denise laid it out. You're off your paper, your fines are paid, and all that kind of stuff. That you have a right to register to vote again and doing it. But I think the more memorable point of that was afterwards I became a candidate, and I think talking to people, I was more conscious of those young individuals in Bridgeport, mostly of color, mostly male, maybe in their 20s, who were engaged in the conversation about a local election, not their first priority, but something they were thinking about, and about registering to vote, and then getting a quiet kind of walk away or a head fake as to why they wouldn't register. And the bottom line was they all had felony convictions. And the only way to turn their head back was say, wait a minute, no, you don't understand. If you're done with your stuff, you can vote. So educating them, as Denise tried to do in that video, even on the street, so that they would register to vote. And my takeaway line was, I'm a felon too, and if I can run, if you're done with all your requirements, your paper and everything, you can vote. I think you should vote, or at least register to vote. And so taking it to this next level of inside, whether it's pre-conviction, pre-trial, whatever, someone that's qualified to vote, and people that have the opportunity that are not barred, educating them in every way that we can. And so I really appreciate being a part of this, having it called together, and with some follow through. And I'm much thankful of the many organizations and individuals that are doing stuff every day out there, and then being on the call here today to move this to the next level. So even though you can't see me, or hopefully you could have heard me, if anybody wants to ask anything or say anything to me directly throughout the call, I'll be on. or now, I'm open to that. But I want to do that introduction. Earl, thank you again, and everyone for being on here. I see Chris Rosario's face. I'm not sure it's his picture or his reality, but he's here, and it's on here too.
Yeah, all the questions we'll be taking Q&A after some of the panelists have spoken, and those questions will be addressed in the Q&A section.
Earl,
And,
if do you mind if I respond really quickly?
No, go for it, Andrew. I know you have a limited time with us, so.
Yeah, so I love that, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for highlighting those issues. And I think, you know, the collaborative has, you know, for the past year and a half focused not across the country on what's being done, because frankly, as I'm sure you well know, the bar is pretty low in terms of rehabilitative efforts for folks that are convicted of a crime. And it's been mostly a schema of punishment. And for whatever reason, and I think people have, you know, argued, you know, that there are very well reasons for this to happen, but people are placed in the sense of taking away a right to vote is a punishment. And when we know that, you know, well over 90% of the people return, and you know in Bridgeport, a disproportionate amount of people in the state return to our largest cities, why would you not want them to be citizens? Why would you not want them? A lot of people who are going in there probably hadn't exercised their right to begin with. Why wouldn't you want to use that as an opportunity to say, here's what it means to be a citizen. Here's what it needs to be a good neighbor. And we see those systems in like Norway, where you not only have the right to vote and it's never taken away, but they have candidate forms there. So you know who you're voting. They're actually a constituency that folks who are running for office care enough about to go in to these facilities and have conversations with them. And it just befuddles me and members of the collaborative why we wouldn't look at that as an opportunity for folks to become engaged, rather than some way of continuing to push them off into the margins of society.
No, well put. I mean, you could argue, and I don't want to take up any more time, but I think the two things that resonated with me with a felony conviction, one was the loss of the right to vote, at least for a period of time, and your right to bear arms. I'm not a gun carrier, and you could see some logic, so to speak, I guess, in some crimes with that, but there's none. I don't think anybody can articulate as to why you wouldn't want people to have the opportunity to vote. You wouldn't want to encourage them to vote as a civic duty. I mean, the only thing you really do if you're not kind of involved in stuff is you get to vote and you do jury duty. Those are the kind of the civic things you get to do that are kind of an obligation, I think, a right and an obligation. And let's encourage, and through this collaborative, I think we're making a huge step, and I'm glad I'm a part of it. So thank you, Andrew, for your comments, and look forward to working with you more as we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to go over a quick outline of what we're trying to accomplish here today. Our main objectives for this meeting is to raise awareness about the issue for those individuals that are formerly incarcerated and may or may not be aware that they have the right to vote or not, and what that entails for them to be re-enfranchised. And then we want to enhance communication and partnership among the individuals that are working on this very issue. Then we want to, after that, we want to, after connecting people and folks of like mind that are working on this issue, whether that be a civic organization, a fraternal organization, municipal agency, or what have you, we want to devise a plan of action. So our key goals around this is going to be voter education, voter registration and mobilization, absentee ballot distribution and activation for those individuals that are incarcerated under a status of pretrial that more than likely have the right to vote, but they don't have access to the ballot. So that's what we're aiming to do today. We have a number of people that will be speaking, starting off in just a moment. Andrew, I know recently with the work of the collaborative at IMRP, you guys were doing Make It Happen May. So I don't know if you can want to briefly just kind of go over that, and then we can lead into some of the other panelists talking about some of the work they're doing with the Sentencing Project, as well as with Dwight Hall.
Sure, yeah, and so I mentioned it earlier that you can find out information on that on ctreentry.org, and one of the participants of that conversation was Alex Tsarkov, who's on the call now, who is the director of the Connecticut Sentencing Commission, which has been doing some work on this issue, not just prior to that. I think it would be very fascinating to hear about their experience last year working with DOC at York to get women registered and allow them to vote by absentee ballot. But also they have a new proposal that's currently being considered for expanding voting rights, and they've been working hand in glove with DOC on this issue. So I'd be eager to hear that. And it was brought to light in the conversation with the commission and the Reentry Collaborative that the folks at the Yale Prison Education Initiative have resources to be able to get registrations and potentially absentee ballots to individuals. So we certainly didn't want to make this a resource issue that restricts the right. So I think all of those are new. All of this is new information from what we discussed in May, and eager to hear about that. And I also want to point out that Kelan, who's on the call too, wrote a tremendous article last year in the Connecticut Mirror. I think Mike Lawler was quoted and others about this particular issue. And I believe he's working on that as well, and kind of eager to hear what he's learned too.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I want to give a chance to let Alex, I cannot pronounce your last name, I'm very sorry, but I want to give Alex a chance to talk, who works with the Sentencing Commission, and Andrew as well at the Central Connecticut State University and IMRP.
Thanks, Earl, and good afternoon, everyone. You pronounce it Tsarkov, but everyone pronounces that differently, so it's okay. So I work at the Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy, IMRP, and I direct the Sentencing Commission. And we're new to the voting issues, but it started with us a few years ago when the commission endorsed a proposal to allow people on parole to vote. And so for the last several years, Judge Devlin and others on the commission testified in support of that proposal, along with many others who are on this call. The Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, of course, has done tons of work on this issue. And hopefully it's only a matter of time, hopefully next session when that proposal passes. But then we started to talk about eligible to vote incarcerated population and what voting looks like for that population. And so we formed a small working group where we brought together different stakeholders, including ROVAC, the Registrars of Voters Association, Town Clerks Association, DOC, a number of advocates, including Unlock the Vote, ACLU, New Haven Legal Assistance, the Yale's Reentry Clinic. And we thought that the best way to kind of examine those issues would be to actually go to a correctional facility and conduct a registration drive, and then an absentee ballot application drive to see what that looks like. And so in partnership with DOC, that's what we did. We went down to York to conduct registration drive first, and then came back again with some volunteers to do absentee ballot application drive. And I think that was quite an eye-opening experience for some of us. My takeaways from that experience, number one, there was a lot of interest. There's a lot of sort of, you hear a lot of cynical views about this on the outside, but what I saw was tons of engagement, a lot of interest. We registered, I think, 142 people, and that was at York alone, and really had some great discussions. The second takeaway is that voting in prison is very rare, as many of you know, and that's partly because people just don't know that they're eligible, and partly because voting in prison is not easy. You can vote by absentee, but there's quite a number of obstacles, right? Because you are in prison. And I'd say the final takeaway from that experience is that volunteer efforts are really good, but just not enough, and not sustainable long-term solution to making voting possible inside correctional facilities. And so there really is a need for some kind of systemic solution where whether it's state actors or municipal actors, are part of the solution, and it's got to be on somebody to assist with this process. And so recently, in the last few months, we've been working on a legislative proposal, and I'll describe it briefly. I do have to say that we don't have this proposal yet approved by the Sentencing Commission, but we do plan to bring it forward to the full commission in the fall, and hopefully then to the legislature. As of right now, the proposal does a few things. First, it would expand eligibility to everyone incarcerated. So whether you're there for a felony or not, you would be eligible to vote. That would get rid of some of the ambiguities in the law about people on special parole or people who violated special parole. So everyone will be able to vote, right? And then the question is, how do we actually make voting possible? Because there are a couple of states, Vermont and Maine, that do allow inmates to vote, but at least anecdotally, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of voting happening, right? Because of some of the same obstacles that we've seen. And so we're aiming to create a process that would allow people to actually vote, or at least it would be easier to vote. Number one, a Department of Correction would be required to provide an opportunity for people to register and apply for an absentee ballot application. Within some period of time upon intake, everyone will have an ability to register, and everyone will have an ability to apply for an absentee ballot application. And then we're creating a new status, what we're calling a presumptive absentee ballot status, where once you get on the status, you'll be getting absentee ballots from the town clerks where the people came from originally, for every single election going forward: municipal election, state election, federal election, so that incarcerated individuals wouldn't have to apply for an absentee ballot every time, right? And we're modeling this process on permanent absentee ballot process that's available to those who are physically disabled. That's something that's exists in statute now. If you're physically disabled, you get a letter, certified letter from a healthcare provider that goes to the local town clerk, and then you're on the status of permanent absentee ballot voter, and you get a ballot, not an application, but an actual ballot, every single election going forward. And after considering many different options, we sort of decided to go with this one. We brought in Larry Shapiro, who used to head the Office of Legislative Commissioner's Office, that drafts bills for the legislature. We have Mary Janicki involved, who used to head the Office of Legislative Research. So some really heavy hitters and people who know election law. And we have a meeting later today to go over the proposal with some stakeholders. We plan to run it by everyone in small groups and then bring it to the full commission, and then again, hopefully to the legislature to be considered next legislative session.
Thank you very much, Alex. Quick question for you, and I'm sure somebody may ask this in the Q&A as well. So when you guys did the pilot at York, about how many people were you guys able to register?
So we registered 142 people. Less people have applied for an absentee ballot application, and even less people have actually voted. And you can look at those numbers. I think maybe only 15 people voted, but that wasn't a municipal election, right? It was the first time that we've explained to people that they can actually vote, right? And then they really had no context about sort of who they're voting for, right? They received this ballot in the mail, but they don't get any mailers from the candidates. There's nobody's knocking on their door, on their cell. And so literally the only thing they have to go by is the name of the party, right? And so understandably, not a lot of people have voted, which again just points to the need for a whole new infrastructure for this. Not just expanding the right to vote to everyone, but how do we actually ensure that it's possible? And how do we get, have maybe not this particular election, but going forward, how do we have candidate forums in there, right?
Right.
Debates.
Provide some type of education and awareness along with access to the ballot.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's see. Rep. Rosario, did you want to take a moment to speak on this particular issue?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Earl and Rob and everybody here on the call. I've been a long fighter for the reentry community my entire career. And we all know that the right to vote is the central pillar of U.S. democracy and embodies the foundational principle of governing. It is the very basis of representative government. Democracy works best when every eligible American is able to make their voice heard in elections, yet some Americans held in jail while awaiting pretrial are prevented from exercising this fundamental right. This is disenfranchisement of voting eligible people in pretrial. We need to focus to create policy to ensure that the voting rights of those awaiting trial and other eligible but incarcerated people are fully realized. Back in 2016, 6,195 inmates voted in Puerto Rico's Republican primary. They comprised 1/6 of the voters who cast their ballots. And I got that information from an article in The Atlantic. And I believe Maine and Vermont, if I'm not mistaken, also allow those who are incarcerated to participate in elections. I have family and loved ones who are either currently incarcerated, those who are reentering the community, who paid their debt to society, who want to give back by being involved civically. And we want to make sure that they exercise those rights to vote, but also while they're awaiting pretrial, they have a say in what happens in their community. Us as lawmakers, we really shape what the conditions are, what happens in correctional institutions and in the judicial system. And many times, as you know, this legislature, we have a lot of attorneys there. We have folks that aren't attorneys as well. So we want to make sure that every eligible citizen, which they are, has their right to say who their leaders in government are, from the governor's office all the way down to your local town committee or city council. I want to thank personally Ernie Newton for his work on everything, whether it's workforce issues, but also on this issue as well, to make sure that those awaiting pretrial have that right to vote. I'm committed to work this next session and beyond to make sure we make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rep. Rosario. And do have Ernie Newton on the call. He's listed as an attendee. And we'll see if we get some questions from Councilman Newton in a moment. I wanted to take time to recognize James Jetter and Dr. Zelda Rowland, both out of Dwight Hall, as well as Mr. Jetter doing a lot of work in this regard to accessing the ballot. We've actually he actually had some forums in the local barbershops in Hartford and New Haven, as well as Bridgeport. And I wanted him to talk about his experience returning back to community and the work that he's doing, and how we can better coordinate so that everybody's on the same page. We're not working in silos, and we're going to get this mission accomplished.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is James Jetter. I'm a co-director of the Full Citizens Coalition to Unlock the Vote. I am also on staff at Yale's Prison Education Initiative. I work with Dr. Zelda Rowland at Yale's Prison Education Initiative. I'm sorry, I can't speak this morning.
Take your time, brother. Take your time.
Yeah. Briefly, prior to this pandemic, we were doing a voting rights tour where we were a voting wrongs tour about voting rights, where we were actually doing a barbershop tour. We started off in New Haven, Hartford, and Bridgeport, where we were having these community discussions at barbershops around the historical narrative of voting rights and disenfranchisement of Blacks in Connecticut. I mean, it was a very Connecticut specific community conversation that we were putting together. And then COVID happened and it kind of sidetracked us because I think the most immediate for everybody was figuring out, what's happening with everybody in prison in the middle of a pandemic like this. but here we are, and currently we're doing Zooms like this. We're holding community conversations on voter educations via Zoom with anyone who's willing to allow us to come in and run a forum. And part of the reason that we're doing that it is partly because of the current status of how we'll be voting this election on absentee ballots, but it's also about just the cultural aspect of voting. We look to shift structures and systems, but all that accounts for nothing if we don't shift the culture of civic education and civic engagement, not just in our prisons, but in our most oppressed spaces. Because I think the numbers that Alex said are very, to me, they were optimistic numbers, that you got 15 people to actually vote after registering 142, in spite of the lack of education, the lack of knowing about any candidate. But the reality of the prison situation is that you're talking about people who are coming into prison not knowing, so our communities have really low turnouts. And a part of it is that that the very systems that we look to change, even if we change them, there's systems that have historically and currently been very oppressive. And so you're asking someone now to turn to a system, right? You're constantly asking to turn to a system that is constantly turning on them. And so you run into different hurdles. And so we, as much as we look to shift and create new structures, we have to look to shift to change the culture of our communities and our prisons, because we won't get a voter turnout. During my incarceration, I never once thought about voting, and I did 20 years in prison. The reality of what was lost and what could have been accomplished and what could have grounded me better hit me once I came home and started looking at structures and getting involved in policy work. And so, you don't know what you don't know. And not that I didn't know it in prison, that I didn't know it prior to prison. It's a community thing. And so just looking to start shifting this part, so that way when the systems that everyone is finally up and running are working, you have people who are actually engaging in them and figuring out ways to and figuring out what their engagement is. I think that's the other side of the coin that we're currently working on, and part of that is in conjunction with YPI, Zelda Jack Frisquez, who I think he's a participant right now. He's on his attendance.
Yeah, Jack is on. He's in the attendees.
Yeah, and Joe Galen. I have just been helping me. UTV is pretty small, but they've been great in creating a volunteer force, editing and updating some info that we're doing a mailing coming up soon to our precinct's population on how they themselves can take the initiative to register themselves. We understand that when we support everything that is happening with Alex and the commission, and we just think that in the meantime, if you put the information in there, then you immediately start a different engagement that has to happen. Like, you gotta have fertile ground in order to put a system into. So we're hoping that we can get a turnout through this process, but more importantly, understanding what it means to register, understanding the history of voting in Connecticut, understanding how to obtain an absentee ballot, having the knowledge there, knowing who to talk to in the system. So we're looking to do a mail in the next couple of weeks to all the county prisons, all the county jails. I'm sorry. That's where we're at. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome, James. And anything that myself here at Myra in the city of Bridgeport, or the the Connecticut Reentry Roundtable Collaborative and IMRP that we can do to assist with that, please let me know.
Where'd you get that?
That was one of the reasons to get on this call and have this discussion, so that we can
you send them to us, and then
so that we can link up and utilize each other and unify our forces together and make this, like I said, mission accomplished. So Kelan is joining us from CT Marion. There should be a link to one of the articles he's written in regards to the subject matter in the chat room. If not, we can put the link in there again. But please help us understand this from from your perspective, Kelan? I think I heard as well that you're also working on another piece regarding this issue.
I am. So I have a story that should be out early next week, hopefully Monday, that's going to be about the efforts the Department of Correction is completing to try to get eligible voters at least registered. So they are hosting some information sessions at prisons and jails. I think they're trying to send out an education pamphlet of their own, and then they're doing info sessions to try to get eligible folks to come in and talk. They're going to have to, there's going to be some logistical challenge with that simply because of the pandemic and the social distancing guidelines, but they're going to try to register folks and then give them the tools that they need to cast a ballot themselves. So they'll get them started, and then those folks, it sounds like it's similar to what Alex did with the Sentencing Commission, where they register them, and then it's sort of on them to apply for the absentee ballot and then to actually submit that ballot. I'm curious to know whether or not you guys think that there's any possible way to get around some of the other logistical challenges with that, which is the fact that new folks who are brought into the correctional facilities have to quarantine for 2 weeks to try to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So it's conceivable that some of the eligible individuals will be unable to attend those information sessions just because they'll be quarantined by themselves. But other than that, I've done 2 stories on voting rights. I wrote a story for the Mirror last October about some of the challenges that exist to actually registering and casting a ballot, of which there are many. And then I wrote a story about James for PBS for the centennial of the 19th Amendment, talking about Unlock the Votes efforts and felony disenfranchisement in Connecticut as well. So I'm happy to be here, and if you have any questions, feel free to just let me know.
So you asked about one of the ways maybe getting around the obstacle. I know there are a lot of guidelines inside the facilities under DLC, but I was thinking if they are doing those informational sessions, if they are recording them, then maybe they can have them for playback for those individuals that might be in quarantine. That might be an option. But again, I know there are heavy restrictions in the prison system around, technology and providing access to that. So, but maybe once this conversation is done at another point, maybe sometime in September or later, maybe October, or the end of September, we could try reconvening another conversation like this and have some people from DLC on as well to see, if there is a midpoint, a meeting of the minds where, we can figure out some stuff together that might work for everybody that's involved. So, but I'm sure we'll have some interesting questions in the chats once we start our question and answer session. But we do have Ms. Shannel Evans, who's the director for the Registrar of Voters in New Haven. And when I reached out to her at Bridgeport, they were very interested in work as well. So I want to give her a moment to speak about what's going on, some of the things that she perceives as far as how things are producing ballots, and maybe that might not even be our role because there is division of labor, the Registrar of Voters office and another, I forget the office, but it's more your lane than mine, so I'll let you go ahead and do your thing. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Shannel Evans. I'm the Democrat Registrar for the City of New Haven, as Mr. Bloodworth was saying. So I just have a few things that I do want to give out as well. You guys kind of already hit the nail on the head, about people on parole and not eligible, about people on probation who completed their time, their sentence, their fees, long as it wasn't in violation of voting, election stuff, they are good to go. I have worked with the Reentry program as well to make sure we get those who come out registered to vote so they can get identification so that they can start their life over or continue, however you would like to put it. We also would like to give them the opportunity to work for Election Day, but I'll get back to that. The deadlines for registering in person and registering online is October 27th. If you want to come to our building, just call us, let us know. We'll come downstairs. Even though we're close to the public, we still want to be accommodating and come outside and do voting registration that way as well. As Mr. Jeter was saying, about before the whole pandemic, our office was definitely trying to reach out to the facilities to see if we can do something that resembles supervised balloting, meaning within a certain facility, if there's a certain amount of people there, we'll go out, we will help them sign their, not help them sign, but we'll present to them the application to do absentee, and then we will go back just to make sure that they get their ballot. We'll give them their ballot and take it back. So it's basically a supervised balloting. Just want to make sure that it's ran by the state, make sure that we're going through the guidelines properly, etc. ABs definitely come from town clerk's office, but again, if our office, the Registrar of Voters office, is going out to the facility and it's done under supervised balloting, we have access to the ballot to give to them to make sure that nothing gets mixed up in the mail, to make sure that they are actually receiving their absentee ballot. Once this pandemic cooled down and we're allowed to go inside the facility, that's definitely one of our missions that we're trying to accomplish. And we are here to help any of you guys the best of our ability that we can to make sure that these gentlemen and young ladies get their right to vote. Again, upon them coming out of jail, again, we offer them registration, and we also offer them the opportunity to work on election day. It is a one-day thing, it is all-day thing. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning to approximately 10:30 at night. I think we're one of the highest paying office for voting in the state of Connecticut. If not the top, we're definitely in the top 5. I also will put in some links in the chat on where you can look up to see if you already registered. I know some people, if they go through the Social Security or go through the state, yes, I will. They can go through the state, and they also have cards to fill out if you want to register to vote, which comes to our office. If they want to do it on line through the DMV, they also have that option as well. Our office number, someone just requested, is 203-946-8035. Again, Registrar Voters Office is 203-946-8035. So if you have any questions, just you guys in general, and just any questions regarding registration, please do not hesitate to call us. We're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can also shoot us an email directly. I'm Evans, that's SEVANS @newhavenct.gov. So I had a few flyers that I printed out. It does not come from our office directly. Kind of cheated and got it from somewhere else about parole and probation. If you guys need that, we have it in English and Spanish. Anytime you guys are doing voter registration cards, please let me know. I'm willing to properly show you how to fill out a registration form, etc. So I'm not going to take up much of your time. It was something interesting that someone brought up, the lack of knowledge, the education that a lot of people do not have, and that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people don't vote. So I was working on something for next year. Hopefully we can still do it next year. I know this pandemic, never know when it's going to end. I wanted to do something where we have the state reps, the senators, the alders, the co-chairs, Reentry, mayor, anyone who goes on the ballot to show some type of representation of what they do, why their position is important, because a lot of people just vote for the president, which that's not the best thing to do, just to vote only for the president. You have to start locally. You need to connect with your co-chairs, because they're the person that speaks to the next person to kind of help in that manner. And then you have legislative stuff that needs to be signed off. Do you mind send those information to myself and say? Sorry, just reading the comments that came in. So yeah, just kind of getting everyone there to kind of explain why it's important, what their position does. It's just like census. A lot of people don't know that the grants and everything come into play. I think it's about $2,900 per individual that lose out. So again, it's about the knowledge and the education and everything else with that. That's the reason why a lot of people do not choose to go and vote or register. And it's so highly important. And I'm here to help in any way possible to make sure that we are doing what we have to do to educate people. Can you send them to me? Yes, I can. So I know we're going to do questions at the end. And again, if they're 18 by November 3rd, they can register to vote. Unfortunately, the primary passed, they will still be eligible long as their party affiliation was intact. They would have been able to partake in the August primary. So that's pretty much it for me. Again, I can say questions at the end. And if Earl, if you think I'm missing something that you would like me to touch on right quick, I do not mind.
Not a problem. No, I think everything that you said was great. I don't think that you cheated with having that form, because I do recall getting those forms created when I was in the New Haven office with Reentry. So it's not cheating, it's a partnership. For everybody that's listening, we will get access to those forms that Shannel has and get those mailed out. We also have some forms that through Mr. Rob Hebert and Career Resources in the Bridgeport Reentry Council that has all that information as it relates to Bridgeport and the number and emails for the Bridgeport the Office of Voter Registrars. I did take that form that Mr. Hebert sent and edited it, and also there's New Haven information in there as well for both Democrat and Republican voter registrar's office. I'm so not getting that right, I know. And I see you looking at me, Shannel. My apologies. But we do have that information, and we also recently got from the Christian Action Agency out in New Haven, which has a lot of information on it as well for individuals that are formerly convicted and newly out and returned to the community, which also has all the polling information. We're going to look to get some of that information duplicated here in Bridgeport as well. We want to provide as much information as humanly possible to individuals and get that both in English and in Spanish out to everyone. So it's duly noted that information is needed, and the Myra department here in the city of Bridgeport and the Reentry Roundtable Collaborative will do our best, our level best, to get all that information out and partner with everybody that's here, like I said, so that we're a unified force in making this happen and making sure that people who have the ability to vote are aware of it and are re-enfranchised. Hello, Councilman Newton.
Hello. Yes, sir.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Let me thank all the panelists for being here, and thank you, Earl. I want to say that I've listened to some of the discussion on registering ex-felons, but you got to put yourself in the ex-felon's position. Most of them that I work with, once they get out of prison, the first thing they want is a job. And we've got to create opportunities that will allow them to see the benefits of voting. If I spent 27 years in prison, the first thing I don't want to hear about is registering to vote. So I think how we approach it, I can tell you some of the things that we do in Bridgeport. One, we changed our hiring policies for companies doing business with the city. I also sit on the city council. One of the things I changed was when companies do business with the city of Bridgeport, we passed a resolution and an ordinance saying that you got to hire at least 5% ex-felons right off the rip. No debate. If we're giving you subsidies, you have to do that. If we don't put things in law, people will not hire unless we put it in law. And so that's one of the things, and Earl will tell you, I think our department's been up running for how many years? 4 years, 5 years? This is the first time I had to fight
4
with
years.
some other folk. How many?
4 years, sir.
For the first time, we finally gave Myra a budget. You can't have programs set up and they don't have no budget. So this is the first year that he will be funded to do some things such as help people with their driver's license, help them get IDs, the basic things that they need when they come out of prison. Having been a person who was incarcerated, my release date was in 2012. We've got to show them this is what we're doing to help you and why it's important for you to register and vote. Because a lot of guys, I can tell you from working with them, that's the furthest thing from their mind. But once we get them a job, get them cleaned up, get them ready, it makes our job a little more easier. So thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words to this panel. But I think it's doable, and having been a former senator that passed the law to give felons the right to vote in the state of Connecticut, I think we're in good shape as far as the state of Connecticut's concerned, as at least being open-minded on incarcerated inmates by allowing programs to come in and to do some other things. We still got a lot of work to do, but Connecticut has probably been one of the few states that have done some things that other states are so far behind. So thank you all. Keep up the good work, and we'll get there together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Newton. All right, we're gonna try getting Dr. Zelda on, and then after Dr. Zelda, we're gonna try to take some questions. I already have some questions in the Q&A room. I've typed some answers, but I do want to address the whole entire panel as well as so the attendees know some of those questions that are being asked already. Dr.
Okay, is this how is this? This is going to be my last? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We got it.
Yep.
Finally. So sorry, everyone. I just have terrible internet right now. So I'm gonna keep my remarks short. But you all heard the representative mention that in Maine and Vermont, people in prison actually never lose the right to vote. People, have heard about this a lot recently. But 4 years ago, during the last primary season, I became interested in understanding exactly how they pulled this off. So I called the Democratic Party of Maine, which is about to have its caucuses, and I asked, is it true that in Maine people vote in prison? Do you have caucuses inside the prison? Because it seemed like it was a great place to facilitate a caucus in a prison for voting. And the answer was, yes, that's true. We do not tell people in prison that they have lost the right to vote. And I said, well, that's actually different from giving people a mechanism to exercise a right that they already had. But the party had no idea how people in prison were voting. And I actually drove up at the time to do some of my own investigating and found that people who were incarcerated largely didn't know that they had the right to vote. And I actually met people who were incarcerated in a low security camp but were staffing a shop that sold Prison Industries manufactured items. And I asked if they were going to be voting in the upcoming election, and they said, no, we're not allowed to vote. And I said, well, actually you are. It's a big, people talk about it. But, this really, this is a big deal. We can't let Connecticut do that. We can't have people who should be voting who we're not giving a mechanism to exercise that right. And I think it's been mentioned, I run the Yale Prison Education Initiative, which is a higher education and prison program that brings access to Yale classes and programming to students largely at McDougall-Walker in Suffield. We have students who are completing coursework on the level of Yale students, receiving Yale transcripts for this work. So actually extending access to the ballot is not really inherently a part of my job or YPEI's mission, but I do see our program through the lens of Yale's mission, which is to seek exceptionally promising students of all backgrounds to lead and serve in every sphere of, or with the aim of cultivating citizens to lead and serve in every sphere of human activity. And I personally, I believe that if we can imagine a future beyond mass incarceration, then the leaders of that future have been or are currently incarcerated. And our students in YPEI and the students that I've worked with in the Wesleyan Center for Prison Education are some of the most engaged students I've ever met on any college campus. And I do think that if we are to imagine a body citizens poised to become leaders, then we need to prioritize including those citizens as voters now. So I know it's been mentioned, but there's some 3,000 people currently incarcerated in our own state who are being held pretrial, unsentenced, or being held on a misdemeanor, who with any change in the law necessary are currently allowed to vote. So if we're not providing a mechanism for those votes, if we're not actively reaching out, then we're already not doing a great job. So what I'm here to say and offer today is that YPEI, through me, through James, and through our work, we're here to offer support and resources for these efforts. We have the resources to support a mail-in attempt. I will personally assemble a team of Yale student volunteers to, stuff envelopes with colors, nonpartisan voter education registration forms, absentee ballot requests. But I'm begging everyone, while Alex and the commission around the state are working to expand the voting body beyond what it is currently, and ideally, bringing in people on parole to vote, and maybe even beyond that to restore the right to vote to people inside. I'm begging you, let's be assured that there is someone that we're giving are being their right to it. Excuse me, it's urgent, and we're running out of time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zelda. We appreciate that. And it is a sense of urgency around this. And the more that we can do in a concerted effort, I think the more successful we'll be. There will definitely need to be some follow-up conversations around this. I'm hoping at least by next week, we can convene something offline with everybody that's involved. So with that being said, I'd like to get to some of the questions that have been asked. So from Karen Schlossberg, she asked, can we send the link for the video of Denise Merrill? That link is in the chat, Karen. It's also going out on the Greater New Haven Reentry Roundtable newsletter. And I will be happy to send that link directly to you as well. You can also access the video on the ctreentry.org website. Another question that we have is from Diane Separina. Could League of Women Voters be helpful in educating the incarcerated? Could candidates do video messages that could be viewed at the prisons? I think both of those suggestions are great. We will need to convene with the League of Women Voters and see, what that partnership looks like. And I think the more the merrier in getting the word out. And as it relates to video messages that could be viewed at the prison, again, that was a question that I had asked earlier, and I'm not 100% sure what would that look like or what the mechanism is for that, for individuals to view videos. The DOC has a lot of restrictions, but I mean, if the candidates if the legislators make it happen legislatively, I don't see why that wouldn't be an issue. But as Dr. Zelda just stated, Maine and Vermont have been touted very highly as it relates to individuals being incarcerated and still having access to the ballot and being able to vote. But upon further inspection and closer looking, it's not as it appears to be. So that's something we definitely have to look at, how that would work if it is put into legislation, make sure that it's actually being executed on. Another question that we have here. So we have, can incarcerated individuals register to vote and request an absentee ballot at the same time? I don't know if that's something that Ms. Evans, can you answer that question?
Okay. Am I off mute? Yeah, okay. So if they are incarcerated, if they already have their sentence, no. If they're waiting to be sentenced, there's nothing there, then yes. So that's something we're working on to do supervised balloting for. So we will bring them the application and their ballot and take their ballot back to the town clerk's office.
So they would register and vote all at the same time if they're
Correct.
eligible.
We'll
Okay.
do a voter registration. Yes, we'll do a voter registration card and then have them fill out their absentee because again, me and the town clerk's office, we work together. So it'll come through our office first, they'll do an application, and then we'll come back at a later date to do the balloting.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question regarding the special session that's coming up in September. So will any of the organizations on this call be pushing legislation during a September special session to restore voting rights? I don't have an answer to that, Joseph, but that's something I guess we can talk about offline. I really don't know what that special session is going to entail. We were hoping to have we were hoping to have Senator Gary Winfield and Robin Porter up here, and that was a question I wish we could have asked Representative Rosario as well while he was up here. We don't know what that special session is going to entail. If it's anything like the special session that they just had, they pretty much have a limited amount of things that they're willing to work on, and those things are, for the most part, kind of generally already predetermined in conversations, I believe, with Governor.
I think Senator Gary is here because I think I just seen him ask the question about Doc. Can we discuss it with Doc? So I think Senator Gary Winfield is here.
Okay, let me take a look.
He is.
He is. Okay, he signed in. I'm going to put Senator Winfield on.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hey, sorry, I was over there. I was like, I don't know how to get your attention. Let me just say this. I'm willing to go back a step. I'm willing to have the conversation with the DOC as it relates to making, and I think I indicated this to you, Earl, as it relates to making sure that people actually get to vote. And I actually had a bill about that, although my bill went a step further, as you know. It was to restore voting rights to people who are incarcerated. I know how difficult making that happen is, but I think it's important. On the issue of what the special session is going to be, that conversation is currently underway. This hasn't been imagined as part of it. As you know, I think this stuff is more controversial, and I think they're looking to do stuff in that session that they believe can actually get done. If you think about it, we're in the end of August, and we're looking to do the special session in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So getting buy-in may be tough, but I will tell you that if it doesn't happen in a special session, I'm absolutely happy to run bills to make this stuff happen in a regular session.
Thank you very much, Senator Winfield. I appreciate you joining us and taking the time, and we have discussed that. And as I stated, one of the goals for this call is to get a bunch of like-minded individuals as well as organizations together so we can put forth a concerted effort in achieving this goal. I mean, the ultimate goal is make sure that everybody has the right to vote, but working within the parameters and the time frame that we have, getting those that are eligible to vote access to the ballot and making them aware and mobilizing them and activating them so that they actually do follow through and vote. I think it would be more advantageous right now. One of the things that was brought up from Alex Tsarkov, I think I said that right, was the fact that they did run a pilot and they registered 140 plus people, and out of those 140 plus people, they got about 15 people to vote. So we would like to duplicate that and increase the number and order and magnitude of people that are registered and vote, that are eligible while they're incarcerated, and also are voting. And see, somebody actually has provided me some information, but Mr. Mr. Jetter, if you want to speak, I can speak it, or if you want to, relay the information that you just gave me.
So like if you look at the, I was thinking actually, if you look at the IMRP, when Alex went into York last year as a pilot, you had some success, but I think if you look at like a system of actually creating a culture where you have candidates that are actually able to send in the videos. Walker CI is the one prison that has the hookup. They're the only correctional facility, I should say, not a prison, that has the in-cell capability of running videos in every cell. So you can actually, that is controlled by DOC. So they can actually run infomercials. They have the ability to some 700-800 men who are being held there.
That's in Walker CI?
Yeah, that's in Walker.
Okay, so Walker CI is pre-sentence and houses 700 or 800 men that could view these videos if DOC allowed it. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Alex, if you're still available, could you kind of describe what the sessions were like when you were in York?
Sure. I'm sorry, I lost my video somehow. So York, if you've ever been there, it's really spread out, right? There's a lot of different buildings. Almost looks like a college campus, but it's not. And so what we basically did is we went around from facility to facility, and we had a presentation in small groups to everyone who was interested, and we talked about eligibility issues and voting issues, and then we helped with the actual registration, answered questions, helped fill out registration forms, and then came back again, did the same thing for absentee ballot applications. Now, of course, none of that is possible, and so we've been working with DOC to see kind of what may be doable, but they're, as I understand, aiming to replicate that model, and I think the goal is to post flyers everywhere about eligibility, and then schedule days when they will assist people with registration and filling out the applications. But beyond that, I commend everyone's efforts to do more this particular election and going forward. I think DOC has been engaged in this effort, probably more so than in the past, and so hopefully we can work together in that effort.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. We have a question, and I don't know that it was necessarily answered by what Alex just stated, but the question is, who will educate those incarcerated on the candidates? And I mean, that is a valid question, and some of the stuff that's been set up here would be, for the prisons or Department of Corrections to have some type of candidate forums. How that would take place, I'm not sure, because based on what Mr. Jetter just said, only one facility has the ability to even feed video into, or infomercials like that or something like that, into the cells of each individual. And currently, the way COVID is, they're not letting anybody in, so we wouldn't be able to do like what just Alex was just talking about. We wouldn't be able to have any face-to-face, but we do need to find a mechanism that allows for individuals to get information on the various candidates, whether that's part of the mail-in solution, or again, creating some videos for individuals to see and finding a way for them to access those videos as it relates to candidates that are seeking their vote. I want to say in the discussions that we've had either today or yesterday, actually I think Dr. Zelda just stated it, there are roughly about 3,000 to 4,000 individuals that are incarcerated right now that are eligible to vote. And as we know, every vote counts. Okay, I do have somebody that just stated something in the chat that Faith Acts and Bridgeport puts together a booklet on candidates that perhaps we could get to them. At least they did for Bridgeport residents. So maybe as part of that mailing that Dr. Zelda and Mr. Bitter are doing, maybe we can provide that booklet on candidates as part of the mailing so individuals can find out more about if they're actually going to exercise their franchise, who they would be exercising their franchise with.
Real quick. As far as Unlock the Vote goes, we don't do candidate endorsement or candidate education. We're strictly nonpartisan. Therefore, we're solely focusing on the processes in the culture of voting in our communities and not on candidates.
The same goes for the Registrar of Voters Office. We still represent everyone, and even though I am the Democrat Registrar and Marlene is the Republican Registrar, we're not allowed to have that. It's just like having palm cards at the polls, where they cannot be around while we're doing voting.
That's correct, and I think for everybody that may not know, when you are doing any type of voter registration drive, it is nonpartisan. You cannot tell somebody to register as a Democrat or register as a Republican or tell them who they should be voting for. You are just there as a person getting someone to register to vote and turning in that voter registration card. There is no necessarily education about any specific candidates that goes on when you're registering people to vote one way or the other. It's illegal. Let's see, we just had another question. Oh, no, just a thank you. Okay. You're welcome, Karen. And I think we had some information in the chat as it relates to Walker CI, and say Walker is not pre-sentence, high bond, unsentenced might be there. High bond pretrial is the targeted audience, and that is who Walker houses. Okay, so we got some clarification on that. We got some information here from Mr. Lyons from CT Mirror. The DOC told him in a Monday interview they identified approximately 2,150 incarcerated people who meet the eligibility requirements. That's about a third of the incarcerated population that are eligible to vote.
Earl, you got North Avenue in Bridgeport too, right?
Yeah, we have North Ave in Bridgeport. That
which I assume has got a lot.
Then we got North. So the holding facilities that would hold individuals that would more than likely be eligible are in Bridgeport, BCC. Hartford has a holding facility as well. New Haven has a holding facility as well. So you will find that in all the major urban areas, they are holding facilities that would house individuals that are eligible, more than likely have some eligibility to vote. York facility, which is the facility for women, is unique in that it holds it's the only women prison that we have, and it holds all of the population. So whether they're sentenced or unsentenced, they are in York.
I wonder if that number from Department of Corrections factors in priors. In other words, just because somebody's on pretrial doesn't mean they don't have a prior felony. But let me think that through. I guess that wouldn't really matter, right? Because they would have finished likely would have finished any entanglements from their prior felony, even though they're incarcerated on a new
I believe so.
That may not matter. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Somebody just typed in, what about Corrigan, Walker, and Garner all have pretrial blocks? So I wasn't aware. I thought that the county jails were the ones that held all the pretrials. And then we have somebody that typed in, Federal has one at Wyatt and Rhode Island, but our District of Connecticut people are there on pretrial. So just to clarify, Randy, you're stating that federal-wise, we have people being held in Rhode Island from Connecticut that are on pretrial.
Wyatt, federal, yeah.
Okay, so we have, I guess, a lot of the focus for the efforts that I put in and the efforts that a lot of the Reentry Roundtable Collaborative puts in has been focused around the state. That is another issue around federal prison holding facilities, is that, I guess, and this news to me, that, okay, so there's a facility in Rhode Island, which is Wyatt, it's federal, and there are residents of Connecticut that are being held there in pretrial. So technically, I would want to say that they're eligible to vote, but I don't know how that works interstate. But so maybe that's something that we should try to find out as well. About half of federal inmates are held in DLC facilities pretrial. And that's from Andrew Gehring. And update, however, Wyatt is a private prison, therefore we don't really have access. So that's another issue, whether the facility is a private or federally funded, or not federally, if it even is private, it's federally funded, but private versus non-private facilities, that's another issue. Just while we have you on, Senator Winfield, I was wondering, with you trying to pass prior legislation on individuals, giving everybody the right to vote, what does that mechanism look like? So even if, you know, the legislation went out and we had the full support and it went through, I'm assuming in my head that it would be very similar to what it was like for the police accountability bill to pass. But if it does, in fact, something like that you authored goes through, what does that look like as far as a mechanism with providing all those individuals that are currently locked up to vote? Has that been thought out as well? What DLC would do, or how the community would work with DLC to make that happen?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There's been some thought given to it, but like many of the bills that I try to work on, mostly what there's been is resistance. And so the mechanism hasn't really been worked out. If we got further, that would have been worked out, because you obviously need that before you can pass the bill. There would have been a fiscal note and analysis on the scheme we were taking. I think there are probably several approaches you could take, but we haven't gotten that far yet. Largely, that bill was looked at as crazy from the perspective of many of the legislators. I ran the bill to begin to get people thinking in that direction. I didn't actually think I was going to pass the bill, right? When you run a bill like that the first time, the point is to get people to begin thinking, so you can then break down that barrier and get it done. So we don't have a direct answer to that question, but I do think that the next time that we run the bill, the conversation will be more a much more expanded conversation and go deeper.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Winfield, and please, Alice, proceed.
So just want to make sure that everyone's aware that, you know, we do make special accommodations for different populations when it comes to voting, right? We have a supervised absentee ballot process that's available to residents of nursing homes, so that if there are more than 20 residents of a nursing home, registrars and town clerks work together to go to those facilities and do supervised absentee ballot voting, right? Because there's a recognition as a matter of policy that that's the population that may need assistance with voting. We have permanent absentee ballot process that's available to those who are permanently or physically disabled, right? And there's a recognition that people who are physically disabled should need to apply for an absentee ballot for every single election, right? That they should be getting a ballot every single election because they're physically disabled. And so, you know, I hope that we can all sort of put our heads together and figure out a process for how this could work for people who are incarcerated. And by the way, beyond Maine and Vermont, the District of Columbia also recently restored voting rights for everyone incarcerated. So slowly, I think it's becoming less crazy of an idea, especially given the fact that, you know, a third of the population in Connecticut that's incarcerated can already vote, right? If you add up those who are held pretrial and those who are convicted of for misdemeanors, that's more of the third of the incarcerated population right there. And on top of that, there's a real ambiguity when it comes to, for example, population that's on special parole, right? I have yet to hear an answer about whether people on special parole and then those who violate special parole who are incarcerated, whether they're eligible to vote. And so what do we tell those individuals? it doesn't seem like we can provide any kind of definitive answer, which is just crazy, right? I mean, that's a lot of people on special parole. So I have high hopes for next legislative session, and let's see what we can do.
That's that, yeah. And from my understanding, Connecticut is one of the only states in the union that really does the special parole, and it's not being necessarily utilized as it was originally intended.
Right. There's a lot of people on special parole. A lot of people at DOC for violation of special parole, and whether somebody could vote in special parole could probably be argued both ways.
Alex, Earl, just for the purposes of the conversation, you may want to give a definition of special parole. A lot of people are a little sketchy on it.
Okay, I will throw that in the chat.
It's Joe Ganim again. Senator, if he's still on, one thing, there's going to always resistance on these type of bills. One that might be a step forward, even if it's not, if you're incarcerated, I don't know how many, so maybe somebody has a number, how many people, whether it's on special parole, on parole, I don't know whether they still use the term probation, all those tails that once you step out of prison that still are categorized as part of your sentence that under the law now has to be completed, fines all paid and all that. There's a whole, I'm sure thousands. I know we used to use the number, there's 1,000 released in Bridgeport and probably Hartford, New Haven, and maybe Waterbury every year from incarceration. Even trying to get that population freed up to vote would be a huge step. I'm not saying not everyone, as maybe would be the concept, but that's just one idea that would touch a whole huge population.
Yeah, and how you doing, Mr. Mayor? I think that is potentially a good place. You're gonna hear my kids in the background because of course I'm home. I think that is a good intermediate step for us to explore. I think it would fundamentally change whole communities potentially. So I would be willing to explore it. I would, however, start with trying to do it for everyone. I think that if you, particularly if you have people whose liberty you've taken, they still should have some impact on how government works. I don't think that we are good enough that we can oversee those individuals without them having any impact simply because they committed some crime. So I would start there, but I think your suggestion is a good intermediate step, at least from my perspective.
And don't get me wrong, I'm with you 100% on both. And as you move forward with it, any way that I could be helpful, I want to do it on both, but I just thought it's part of it. So absolutely, I agree with you conceptually, philosophically, and would be a vocal voice in any way that I could be helpful on anything you decide to move forward on, even in a special session. Yeah.
Senator Gary, this is Councilman Newton. This is Councilman Newton. There is some talk, I forgot to share it, that Van Jones is looking at going to municipalities, city councils, to ask them to pass a clean slate bill that basically says, or mirrors what you're trying to do in Hartford, and after a certain period of time, municipalities won't even look at, even though we ban the box, people still can look up your felony, that a municipality would be able to hire them after the 3 years or 5 years that the way the bill is written now. Would that cause any problems with the state? I can't remember. That's why I'm asking you.
You mean as the state law currently is? I mean, I guess inside of the municipality, not really. But, look, I think Van Jones, if anybody is going to do the work of getting municipalities on board, particularly us, right, the New Haven reports, I think it's important. I appreciate the efforts that at least the executives of those municipalities were willing to put in this last session. But let's be real. When we started the session, we came into the session with a conversation about clean slate, and then the governor did a bill that, well, everybody knows my perspective. It wasn't really clean slate, which is why I had to rewrite a bill. So this conversation is a difficult one to have with the governor's perspective on clean slate. So I think you need the municipalities to really be weighing in here, and not just writing a letter or being supportive, but being vocal. Because I think the governor needs to hear, particularly from the places where votes come from, that this is something we want to do, that we have a different way of looking at this population than we used to have. And we need to not waste time doing things that tittle at the edges of this thing. And we need to really change lives. And the way that you change lives is by giving people an out. Right now, we've locked people in the prison system, even when we open up the doors and let them out, and we can't continue to do that. So if somebody's doing that work, please do that work. That will only make the work that I'm doing much more effective.
Well, the reason I brought it up was because we, as the city council in Bridgeport and the mayors here, we passed a resolution supporting your efforts in Hartford. But I do think that if we could get municipalities to pass on a local the language on what you're trying to do, so that when they come back to our towns and cities, we could also treat it the same way that we're trying to change it on the state level, that municipalities are open after a certain period of time to find full employment through the municipality now, to work for municipalities in some shape, form, or situation.
Senator Newton, I would just say this. I think from the perspective of the municipality, as long as you're not running afoul of the federal government or something like that and some of the rules that exist there. But if you're thinking about hiring, I mean, some of the cities have already done ban the box, and so they kind of do hiring. There have been some questions about that. But like, if you're thinking about that kind of thing, then I think you're on firm ground, as long as, and you have a city attorney who would make sure you don't run afoul of this. But I think you would be on firm ground there. My only point in addition to that was we've got to amp it up in terms of how loud we are when this bill comes back around. And just in case you don't know, I will be reintroducing my bill in January.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to know if we could, I'll check with our city attorneys. I think we can do it. And I think that if all the municipalities, Hartford, New Haven, Waterbury, and those other places start doing it, it would help your situation up in Hartford.
Thank you, Councilman Newton, and thank you, Senator Winfield. I have a couple of other items up here. I just want to make mention. We had somebody state that, Van Jones' work, questioning if Van Jones' work is exclusive or excluding anyone. We must remember, no real reform is completed or accomplished when we leave anyone behind, including the lowest recidivist group going, and that is in reference to those who are individuals who have a sexual offense. So just want to make sure that everybody in this forum is heard. The other thing that was mentioned, and maybe you can speak to this, is a couple of things, Senator Winfield. Just wanted to make sure that you're aware of the limitations technology-wise of DLC with regards to the IT infrastructure and connectivity. This is another issue that impacts, our inward reach into the facilities, so that we can make those transitions back to the community even more effective, which also encompasses around, voting rights, which we brought up, having access to, some type of connectivity inside, with there only really being 1 or 2 prisons or facilities that have some type of infrastructure that would allow messages for voter education or what have you to even be accessed. And then
can I just say something to that? I am aware, and I've been engaged in conversations with the DOC and the executive branch about that. I mean, COVID has kind of exposed the flaw of our thinking in this subject matter area. But I will just say, look, we are where we are because we choose to be here, not because it can't get fixed. And I think there needs to be a push on government that doesn't accept, well, look at the structure we have, and that's the structure we always will have. Because that's, first of all, that's just not true. And we have to ask ourselves, what are we trying to do inside the prisons? And if we're trying to do what we've been doing in the past, then I guess the structure is fine, because what we've been doing in the past doesn't help the people in the prisons, it doesn't help their families, and we could go down a long path of who it doesn't help. But if we're actually trying to make this work in the way that I'm trying to make it work, and I think anyone who's actually taken time to think about it is trying to make it work, then we have to make some choices. We have to make some investments and get it done. And it's that simple.
Yeah, it sounds like a term I used to hear back in my corporate days before I came over to working in the public sector, called either a skill issue or will issue. And it sounds like more of a will issue than a skill issue. Just want to add one other thing, a feather in your cap, Senator Winfield, is that, you know, the CT Reentry Collaborative is at your disposal in assisting you in any way that we can be utilized. It was also the CT Reentry Collaborative, along with IMRP, that updated the Connecticut reentry strategy that hadn't been updated since around 2008, 2009. And we as a collaborative updated that in 2018 and provided that to the Malloy administration and the outgoing Malloy administration and the incoming Lamont administration. So there is documented work that the collaborative has done. We just need to see what can be done.
Thank you for that.
Is being executed upon. As I said, the collaborative and IMRP are here for elected officials to utilize us and making this work more effective. I don't.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for that work. I recognize the work that you're talking about, but I'm glad that you put that out there. And we will use you as we move forward on these issues.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your partnership too, and all the great work that you do. I don't know that we have any more questions. We do have some quite a bit of follow-up work to do as it relates to this. Let's see. It looks like we have Mr. Andrew Clark back with us. Andrew, I just made you a host so you can activate your video if you choose to. But I want to thank everybody. This was a labor of love putting this together. Hopefully this is the first of many conversations that we'll have coordinated between Bridgeport and New Haven, as well as some of the other some of the other reentry roundtables throughout. There are approximately 10 of us. It started out as one originally in Bridgeport, and over the last several years, it's been a coordinated effort to grow. We have New Britain, we have Waterbury, we have Danbury, we have Wyndham, we have London, we have Hartford. So there's definitely a concerted effort to make
Torrington.
Sorry?
Torrington.
Yes, Torrington is one of our newest ones within the last year. So it's definitely a lot of work being done throughout the entire state of Connecticut. And Bridgeport is definitely been in the lead of that, and want to make sure that the effort is concerted with all available parties, whether that, like I said earlier on, if that's a municipality, if that's a university, if that's a fraternal organization or sorority, whatever is out there that is willing to make sure that these individuals that are coming back into our community, and some that are eligible to be enfranchised while they're locked up, we want to do our level best to make sure that we do everything we can to assist them, as well as making that transition back into the community successful and reducing recidivism and increasing public safety. So with that being said, I don't know, you know who I didn't hear from is the co-chair for the Greater New Haven Reentry Roundtable, Mr. Don Robinson. I don't know if you wanted to say something, a few words before we close out.
Yeah, so first, thank you and Rob and both New Haven and Bridgeport for hosting this, and obviously much thanks to Senator Winfield, Mayor Ganim, and the other folks that participated. I think this is, again, important to keep this these particular topics in the public light. You know, I think, you know, as we've seen over the years, you know, when you have a state-run system there, which doesn't have ownership of individuals being released to the community when they're done with their sentence, there is a lack of true coordination to ensure that people successfully reenter. And what I've seen over the past several years now, and it's emblematic in Mayor Ganim's participation, other mayors, former representative and Councilman Newton, is that municipalities are taking more and more in the lead in saying it's not acceptable that people are not coming back ready to be full citizens, dealt with humanely. And yes, people need to be held accountable, but we can do that in a way that also elevates them and elevates community. And these are the very things that need to happen. And when you open up that process to community, to people that care for individuals' well-being, you'll only get better. And hopefully that this continues in that trajectory. And I just thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for those words, and we look forward to continuing this work with you and with everyone else. Mr. Hebert, do you have any last parting words?
Sure. Thanks for doing this, Earl. First of all, I know you were up late last night getting this together. Thanks to Mayor Ganim for joining us, and Senator Winfield and Representative Rosario, and Andrew, of course, for all the coordination in New Britain. I am not an IMRP employee, but I am a Central Connecticut State alum, so I always appreciate being involved. From my perspective, I've never been sort of interested in the sentencing and the actual legislation with regards to laws. I've always felt strongly, though, that when a sentence is over, it should be over. I don't think we can move forward as a society if people are sort of walking around with this new scarlet letter for the rest of their lives. And with regards to voting and employment, it's just it's something we can get done. I know there's a lot of people that think it's too big of a mountain to climb, but I'm not one of them. I can remember just a couple of years ago, these conversations would not have happened, not with so many involved parties. So again, I want to thank everybody that joined today. There's good work ahead of us, and I look forward to being part of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hebert. And Mayor Ganim, you want to close us out?
Just quickly, thank you to everyone. And as we move forward, again, as others have said, I want to do my part and more if I can. Certainly want to build on some of the stuff, Earl, that you've laid out and everyone's done here and continues to do, and do more as an active and vocal, whether, Gary, it's through your legislation. Ernie suggests maybe we do something on a local level. That's great. But getting into the facilities, if that's the goal between now and November, how that gets mapped out to reach out. If the number is 2,100 or 3,000, I think that's a digestible number to create that. And then those that are on the street, we need to encourage them if they can to vote too. As a follow-up too, maybe at a different time, I'm also the, I guess the chair of a subcommittee for the U.S. Conference of Mayors on Reentry. I asked that be created last year, and the president of the conference indulged, and we've had some meetings there. I know there's other mayors looking for ways that they can enhance life for individuals who are reentering their cities, and I'm sure would be interested in this agenda too. I don't think we have enough time to reach out between now and November, but I certainly want to re-engage individuals here, maybe with ideas and thoughts where we can share with other mayors municipally, even outside Connecticut. So thanks very much, and for pulling it together. I look forward to working with everyone.
Thanks. Let me know I was muted for the 8th time. But I want to thank everybody for their participation and all the work that went into it. I could not have done this by myself. It's definitely a team effort. And this session has been recorded, so it will be available on the Myra website. It will go out in the newsletter, I want to say, for the Greater New Haven Reentry Roundtable as well. I'll make it available to the Bridgeport Roundtable Council, and it'll definitely be on the ctreentry.org website. So I'll definitely make that available. I was talking to Mr. Clark earlier on about taking the video and having it edited professionally with some of the staff that they have there. It'll also, I think, we're going to get it over to CTN, so it could be broadcast on the Connecticut network out of the legislature's office there. So it will be readily accessible. And with that, folks, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you for everyone that's attending. We're down to 47 participants right now, and we started off, we were about 65 folks. So I think this was awesome, and look forward to working with you all again and getting, like I said, mission accomplished in this particular aspect of one of the many million things that we do, trying to make the returning citizens' lives better in our community.
Thanks,
Thank
Earl.
you, Earl.
Have a great day.
Thank you,
folks.
Earl. Thanks, everyone.